Bitcoin is one of those things that many people know about, but few seem to actually understand. And when first hearing about it, it is easy to have a lot more questions than answers. So when looking back at when I was just getting into Bitcoin, there are a ton of things that would have made my life so much easier if I had known them. So here are 5 things that you should know about Bitcoin, especially if you are new to the space. First, everything is a scam, until proven otherwise. It's really no secret that there are a ton of people trying to steal money from you in the crypto and Bitcoin space. There's the classic, send me 1 Bitcoin and I'll send you 2 scams. But as time has gone on, the scams get more complex and hard to spot. BitConnect, which pretended to be a legitimate Bitcoin-oriented business, was just a giant Ponzi scheme that stole several $billion from investors. And even very well-respected businesses like FTX, which was one of the largest crypto exchanges, have been caught lying and cheating their customers, which inevitably ended up in people losing the money that they had stored there. Instances like these make it clear that you always have to be on guard if you don't want to lose your money. Lots of people who are new to Bitcoin jump in a little too fast and just a little too excited. And when everything seems exciting, it gets really easy to ignore any warning signs that may pop up. And even people who have been interested and into Bitcoin for years still end up getting scammed. So do your due diligence and don't take anything at face value. Do the extra research that others won't so that you don't lose any money. Remember, everything is a scam until proven otherwise. And that goes for Bitcoin too, which leads me into my next thing. You need to learn everything you can about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is complicated. The way it works and what it can do for the world are very interesting ideas, but some people only get a very surface level understanding of it, which can be fine to some degree. But this is one thing that I wish that I had done immediately after learning about Bitcoin. I first learned about and bought Bitcoin in 2017, but I really didn't understand how it worked or what it could do until a few years later. And after I understood what Bitcoin was doing, I realized how insanely valuable it is. But that's something that you can't really get until you actually learn about it. There are also a lot of people out there that will try to trick you or sway your opinion on Bitcoin, but when you know how it works and what it does, a lot of those people just become background noise. The good news is that there are a lot of valuable resources out there to help you learn everything you need to know about Bitcoin. If you like watching videos, which you probably do since you're watching this one, there's a YouTube channel I want to recommend. Now, I would like to think that my channel is a great way to learn about Bitcoin, but there is definitely someone who has me beat in terms of Bitcoin knowledge, and that's Andreas Antonopoulos. He has a fantastic YouTube channel that answers most of the questions you could have about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and just how cryptocurrencies work in general. Andreas has been into Bitcoin for a long time now and has extensive knowledge on the subject. His YouTube channel has a lot of lectures on there that are particularly good for anyone who is brand new to Bitcoin. He has also written several Bitcoin-related books. The one I would recommend if you are really wanting to get technical about Bitcoin is Mastering Bitcoin. It really goes deep into every little aspect of Bitcoin, but it can be a little bit dense. Definitely a must-read if you want a really good technical understanding of Bitcoin. Another book that is definitely recommended a lot about Bitcoin is the Bitcoin Standard. This one doesn't go much into the technical aspects of Bitcoin. Instead, it focuses more on what Bitcoin is, why it exists, and how it could affect the world. It's definitely an interesting read. One thing I will say is that the author does have a very specific worldview that not necessarily everyone in the Bitcoin space has. That being said, whether you agree with him or not, I think there is a lot of valuable information here. And lastly, if you're into podcasts, What Bitcoin Did is a really interesting one. The host of it talks to a ton of different people from all over the Bitcoin space. They all have very different viewpoints and backgrounds, and the conversations are really interesting and thorough. I'll have links in the description to all of this stuff in case you want to check any of it out. Next, you need to know that you probably are not going to get rich overnight. A lot of people get drawn into Bitcoin because they have this idea that they are going to get rich quick, but the truth is that probably isn't going to happen. Back in the early days of Bitcoin, so the early 2010s, a lot of money could be made very fast because Bitcoin's price was extremely volatile. After just a year or two of holding Bitcoin, you could have made a pretty hefty profit. But now Bitcoin has a much more stable price, at least comparatively. So while you may be able to double, triple, or even quadruple your initial investment, you probably won't be turning a few $100s into $1 million. Because of this, many investors get interested in cryptocurrencies with smaller market caps. Sometimes these are joke coins like Dogecoin or Shiba Inu, and sometimes they are more legitimate projects that aim to solve some sort of problem. Because of their small market caps, it takes a lot less money to move the price, meaning you can make or lose a lot of money. The problem with these coins is that they are very likely to fail, and many of them are just outright scams. which comes back around to the idea of treating everything as a scam. Many of these coins entice investors with promises of big profits and then end up running away with their money. And even the genuine projects often aren't fully thought out and don't have great leadership, so just some things to keep in mind there. And the concept of getting rich overnight from Bitcoin is kind of missing the point. While there is definitely a lot of money to be made, the ideas and technology that make up Bitcoin are more of the foundation. The getting rich part is more of a side effect of Bitcoin succeeding. Many early adopters of Bitcoin were more focused on the change that Bitcoin could bring to the world rather than the money that it could make them. All that being said, most people now do seem to initially get into Bitcoin on the hopes that they will get rich from it. And if it succeeds, I'm sure many will, but even those fortunes are going to most likely be made with large initial investments and years of waiting. So could you get rich from Bitcoin? Sure. Will it happen overnight? Probably not. While most of the things I've mentioned have been a lot more general, this one is very specific. Self-custody. Self-custody means you hold your own Bitcoins. When buying Bitcoins from an exchange, those coins are then held on the exchange. So the only person who has direct access to those coins is the exchange, while you technically only have an IOU. This can be a problem, as we have seen with the many crypto exchanges that have gone under, taking their customers' Bitcoins with them. Because of the many problems that can pop up by letting someone else hold your coins, it is often recommended that you self-custody them, because then only you will have access to your coins. A common phrase people say is, not your keys, not your coins, which means if you don't have the keys to your Bitcoin, which is how you access them, then you don't really have those coins. There are several ways to self-custody your Bitcoin, each with varying degrees of security. My personal favorite is probably the hardware wallet. A hardware wallet is arguably one of the safest ways to store your Bitcoin because you must use a physical device to approve outgoing transactions, meaning someone couldn't just transfer your Bitcoin if they hacked into a device your wallet is on. That being said, there are still things to worry about if you do self-custody your Bitcoin. The biggest being that if you lose access to your coins, no one can help you get them back. Obviously, it's up to you to weigh the risks of keeping your Bitcoin on an exchange, but many people don't really even know that self-custody is an option, so I wanted to make sure that I brought it up here. Lastly, no one is going to understand Bitcoin, crypto, or anything else related to this stuff. Once you learn about a technology as revolutionary as Bitcoin, you see things a little differently. You aren't really living in the now, you're imagining how things can or will be in a couple of decades. The good news is that Bitcoin has grown a lot in the last few years, and some people will be willing to listen to you talk about it. The bad news is that the average person doesn't know what Bitcoin is, and honestly, they don't care. It's like talking to some random person about computers in the early 90s. Sure, they may know what a computer is, but they don't really know how they work or what the internet is. And they probably don't want to spend hours at a party talking about them. And that's just how things are. So regardless of how life-changing the technology is, it's still very niche in the scheme of things. So you might feel like no one in your life really has the same interest in it. The good news is that the internet exists, and there are tons of great ways to connect with people who are interested in Bitcoin. There are a couple of subreddits, some focused around Bitcoin, one even called Bitcoin Beginners for those new to Bitcoin, and others focused around cryptocurrency in general. And crypto Twitter has tons of people talking about Bitcoin. You can even follow me on there. So hopefully that helps fill the social gap that many people seem to have when first getting into Bitcoin. Now that you've finished this video, why not check out my series on the cryptocurrency Iceberg, where I go into detail on many of the most important concepts in the cryptocurrency space.